Hola, hola, ¿cómo están? Estamos otra vez con la preparación para una sesión con nuestros coaches de Lingua Meeting. Espero que hayan disfrutado de la unidad 6, hablando de la familia, hablando de nuestras vidas y también preparándonos para poder hablar con un paciente sobre su familia. Vámonos. So here we are in Unit 6 talking about family and personal life. You have seen the pronunciation of these words. You've studied the vocabulary words. You've gone through the Get the Essentials video to grab what you need for grammar to be able to communicate and complete these functions in Spanish. So now we are going to prepare for your coaching session where you will put into practice everything that you've seen so far in this unit. Well, and in previous units. Let me move over a little bit. So I have the vocabulary list pulled up as well, which I also recommend that you do when you are preparing and engaging in your coaching session. I'm going to refer to it in just a minute when we get down into the role play part of the preparation for your session, because I want to show you how the vocabulary list will help you prepare for that section. So you will always start with a warm-up because it's, conversing with a person. And in that warm-up, you are just saying hello, greeting, small talk. And sometimes this is the hardest part of the session because small talk isn't always easy. And it touches words and vocabulary that aren't related to the theme that we're on. So some questions you might hear. Hola, ¿cómo está hoy? ¿Cómo va su día? So listen to that question. ¿Cómo va su día? ¿Cómo va su día? ¿Cómo, how? Then you've got day, your day. So what do you think that question means? ¿Cómo va su día? Right. So how's your day going? So you can just say bien, mal, normal. Another question you might hear is ¿qué tal? It's not a question word, you hear it a lot, but it's not a question word that shows up in our question word list. But ¿qué tal su día? ¿Qué tal su fin de semana? How was your weekend? How is your day? ¿Qué tal? So it still has that, I would translate it to how, okay? In those questions. So if you hear that question, again, ¿qué tal su día? Bien, normal, en el trabajo, at work, right? Normal, okay? ¿Trabaja hoy o estudia? You can say trabajo, or you can say estudio español. Maybe you're working on our class. So small talk, okay? And then the coach might ask you a few questions about your family just to warm up a little bit. And here's some sample answers that you can give to these questions above. And then you're going to jump right into activating the vocabulary from Unit 6. Again, have your list out. It's a long list of family members. Our vocabulary list for Unit 6 is longer, but I hope that you find it really moves you along in ability to communicate. So your coach is going to ask you questions, and then you are going to respond, and then they might change one of the words. So, tiene hijos. Maybe they're going to ask, tiene sobrinos. Do you have nieces and nephews? Tiene familia aquí. Family here. And then there are sample responses here, but then they may interchange words asking you questions, just warming up, activating vocabulary around family. Now, you can also ask these questions of your coach. So practice the key questions, both answering them and asking them. So, si tengo hijos, no tengo hijos. You can say, if you say si tengo hijos, you can say tengo un hijo y una hija, because remember, hijos is children. So then you can define how many of each you have. Okay, tengo 3 hijos, un hijo y 2 hijas. Okay, so practice those. Also from our grammar, from our vocabulary, we are working with these two verbs, tengo, I have, and vivo, I live. And then when they're in the third person or asking directly to someone, you say tiene, usted, do you? And then vive usted, do you live solo o con alguien, alguien with someone. Okay, so activating that vocabulary, have your list out and ready. And then part 2, there's 2 role play contexts for this session. They're longer than normal, and that's why there's only 2 that we skip. There's not many dialogues. These are going to take you some time to work through, to practice through. So you're getting some general information from the patient. The coach will be the patient role, and you will be the clinic staff, the personnel that works at the clinic. So the coach, maybe to start, it will say, okay, I understand. You need some information about my family. Entiendo. Necesitas saber un poco sobre mi familia. So then here are some questions. I would encourage you to grab a few more questions from the vocabulary list to put in this role play. So again, they're from right up here at the top of the list. You can use those in this role play. ¿Tiene hijos? If you want to ask how many, you can say ¿cuántos? ¿Cuántos hijos? How many? ¿Cuántos? ¿Con quién vive? ¿Vive solo? ¿O vive con alguien? ¿Vive con su familia? You can use the question, ¿tiene familia aquí? Okay. You can say, ¿vive en Lubbock? You can say, ¿vive cerca? Those are, we talked earlier in a unit about how you can take a statement and with your tone, with your inflection, make it a question, make it a yes-no question. That's the same here. So if I said he lives with his family, vive con su familia. But if I want to ask you, do you live with your family? I say the same thing, but with a different inflection in my voice. Vive con su familia, your voice goes up. Okay, and then when they respond, they're going to answer those questions, and then you may change roles. There are also, here is the language if you want to put it in a sentence. Vive con, he lives with, she lives with, or you live with. Vive con, so you could even repeat that back, right? So if you say, vive con su familia, and then maybe the patient says, sí, vivo con mi hija y mi nieta. So you could repeat it back. Okay, entiendo, like I understand. Vive con su hija y su nieta. Correcto? So confirming that you understand the information. So one way to do that is just repeat back what they said. Okay? Now remember this when we're talking about possessive adjectives. If I say I live with my partner and my daughter, then when you repeat it back, you don't repeat it word for word. You're going to say, oh, okay, you live with your partner and your daughter. Okay? So, vivo con mi pareja y mi hija. So then you want to confirm you understood. You say, okay, usted vive con, so I change vivo to vive. Usted vive con su pareja, your partner, y su hija, and your daughter. Correcto. Okay? Entiendo. Next, here's a quick example of how one of these role play or mini dialogues could go. Okay? You can practice this over and over. The coach can have a turn. You can have a turn. You can practice extending it out. You can practice it one way, another way, a follow-up question. Even to your coach, we've given them a tip to like change it up with you. Okay? Now, role play 2, this is where we're trying to get a little bit of that family history, learn about family history and support, like if they have support at home. Okay? So again, the coach is the patient and you are the doctor, nurse, or clinic staff. Okay? So questions to ask about family. This is the first list, and then there is the extended list from our vocabulary list. This is a harder set of questions, but if you're ready for it or want to try, please do. If there is one of these questions that you need over and over in your work and in your daily life, learn it, practice it, and use it in this coaching session. I'm only going to focus on these questions. So asking, basically in the room, you say, ¿Está con un familiar hoy? Are you with a relative today? Or specifically, ¿está con su hermana? ¿Está con su esposo? ¿Está con su hija? Are you with your daughter? Right? You can also just ask it, I'm trying to think of a simple way to ask it that basically is generic and broad, in addition to ¿Está con un familiar hoy? You can ask, ¿Tiene familia aquí hoy? Do you have family here with you today? ¿Tiene familia aquí hoy? You can also say, ¿Quién está con usted hoy? Who is with you today? ¿Quién está con usted hoy? Okay. Other questions. ¿Su madre está bien? ¿Su padre tiene diabetes? Okay. You're asking family history a little bit. But then again, here are these questions that would let you really ask deeper dive questions into family history, if that's what you need to get. ¿Alguien en su familia tiene? This is where I would have the vocab list of possible problems or illnesses. I would have that right next to this list if you're going to ask these questions so that you can fill in. So let's look at that. Okay, great. Let's go back down to this list of questions. I have it next to our vocabulary list. So this common vocabulary for family history, this is where you can write out questions before, or you can cut this out and paste it right next to this set of questions, because you can say, ¿Alguien en su familia tiene diabetes? ¿Alguien en su familia tiene presión alta? Okay. ¿Qué problemas de salud hay en su familia? And if they say, mi madre tuvo problemas renales, you can say, okay. ¿Alguien más en su familia con problemas renales? And maybe they say yes. Okay? So have these two lists next to each other if you want to dive deeper into family history questions. At the end, they're going to ask closing questions. How did you feel today? What was hard? What was easy? Here's some sample answers you can respond with. And then, time permitting, we have asked the coach to speak briefly about the importance of family and family support in Spanish-speaking communities, especially as it relates to their country and culture. So if there's time, you can ask them to as well, like you would like to hear, and maybe, point that out in the guide, like, por favor, quiero saber un poco sobre, I want to know a little bit about la importancia de la familia y el apoyo familiar en las comunidades hispanohablantes. Okay? And then remember, reflect at the end. Check to make sure you can do these things, that you feel good about that. And then finish out the reflection in the unit in Brightspace to complete Unit 6. Okay, enjoy your session. Adios.